Well, to unpack their report for us, I'm joined by Jacolize Meiring. She's the head of Household Wealth Research Division at the Bureau of Market Research. Thanks very much, Jacolize, for joining us. What sort of trends did you uncover in the personal income estimates here in South Africa?
Good afternoon. Yes, so our research, we've got the Bureau of Market Research income and expenditure model. And with that model, we've seen that we've got two income definitions. First of all, we've got total income. That also includes what we call in-kind types of income, so free electricity, free water, but that's not really a true reflection of what's happening with in consumers' pockets. So we've also have a cash flow income measure, and what we've seen following, as you just mentioned, there was a significant recovery, but that was due to a very low base effect that we had in 2020. So for the cash flow definition specifically, cash flow income recorded an even higher growth rate than the one that you just mentioned, 10.2% during 2021. And that basically translates to about 4.4 trillion rand of cash flow income to consumers in South Africa in 2021. But the main issue from our research is that when you look at how that income is distributed, that is where the concern comes in. South Africa, as you are aware, is one of the most skewed income distributed countries in the world. And some of our research actually highlighted that we see 75.2% of our adult population, so that's our population 15 and above, actually are only earning 8.2% of cash flow income in South Africa, while a very, very small portion, 3.8% of our adult population earn in the higher income, so that's approximately 48,000 Rand per month, more than that, only 3.8% of our adult population, and they are earning almost half of cash flow income in South Africa. So it's all about the income disparities that we see, and that is, I think, unfortunately has been intensified by the COVID pandemic and lockdowns, as, for example, the employment impact that you just mentioned.
Yes. Huge disparities that you outline. So just explain to us, what do you read from the fact that there were 1.9 million people, less people being employed at the end of 2021 compared to pre-COVID, and the fact that incomes also went up? What do you attribute that to?
Well, our income increases are mainly due to a significant increase that was recorded in dividend income specifically. So those individuals that were fortunate enough to be part of or have investments or have a retirement annuity or pension fund that didn't need to cash that out during difficult times of COVID, then those individuals actually could benefit from a significant increase that we still saw in dividend income and that aspect. But the unfortunate thing, one of the other statistics, is that a large portion of our population, a main source of income of grants, 13.3% of our adult population mainly depend on grants for their main source of income.
Which is huge, and of course there's a big sustainability question around that. Do you think that the social relief of distress grant, for example, is likely to turn into a basic income grant, given that that conversation has really heightened, and of course there's a real need for some sort of level of support, not to mention that of course less than 2 years away we do have elections?
No, definitely. I think with our outlook for 2022, basically, we don't expect a quick recovery. And on a macro level, we do see some economic growth, but on personal income levels, we expect an increase as similar to what we saw pre-COVID era. So on the macro level, but if we look to the micro level, I think there's such a significant portion of our population that are living hand to mouth, that they really cannot survive. So it is definitely, I think, a lot of our population are in dire need of that support, such as a basic income grant. But it comes to if it is sustainable. And that then comes back to what we just talked quickly about, the income distribution. Our tax base based. So our individuals that are actually paying the tax that can fund something like a basic income grant is very limited. So those individuals that have the investments, that have the ability to save, etc. So they are benefiting from growth that we see in financial assets, for example.
Yeah.
But those that are highly dependent on grants, I think there's some struggles coming still for a large part of our South African population.
Yeah, indeed, because we don't even know when inflation is actually going to peak. But of course, we're all worried about the cost of living. But of course, the cost of doing business has also increased as well, especially during this load shedding period that we've been experiencing, with businesses having to make alternative plans to ensure that they keep on powering their operations. Given the context that we're in, to what extent do you think people are going to be able to catch up on their incomes when it comes to wage settlements with inflation?
Well, I can quote some additional research that the Bureau is involved with. One of our other projects, the Consumer Financial Vulnerability Index, we actually talk to key informants about the expectations as well for consumers specifically. And even from that research, we saw that at least an additional 18 months or more needed for consumers to actually recover, or just attempt to recover, some of the losses that was occurred and contributed to COVID-19 and the lockdowns. But unfortunately, we all faced with economic circumstances that are beyond our control. We are, as mentioned, load shedding. There's a lot of structural issues. There's a lot of political instability. We all felt it, rising petrol prices, rising food prices. So now it is back to, what do consumers see that they can do to take control of their finances, and how do they empower themselves to actually survive the storm that is currently raging in South Africa, the economy.
Indeed. Jacolize, thank you very much for your time there. That was Jacolize Meiring. She's the head of Household Wealth Research Division at the Bureau of Market Research.